Welcome to Keyburger, home of the Keyburger. Can I take your order?
Yeah, let me get a quarter-pound key burger with fries and a Coke.
Sure thing, you got it.
Why is my burger missing the top?
Oh, this is a new half-key burger. You don't need the top.
What if I want the top? I want the top.
But you don't need it.
But
Welcome to Keyburger, home of the half-key burger. Can I take your order? Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Scott K. As ridiculous as that intro was, that's pretty much what is happening here with this brand new keyboard, the Brutal 1800 V2 by Cannonkeys. So what do I mean when I say it's like missing half the gasket? Well, the keyboard is indeed a gasket mounted keyboard, but the gasket is only on the bottom. There is like no gasket on the top. So the idea is that it's dampened downwards, but on the top, it's like against the upper frame like a top mount. So either this thing is like best of both worlds, great typing feel and great top mount sound, or a unique keyboard design for the sake of just trying to be unique and weird. Well, for $400 for the kit, I hope it's the former. Let's find out. Alright, like most other Cannonkeys boards, you can opt to get the additional carrying case if you want, which is a nice touch if you want to be more mobile. Inside, you have all the usual bits, right? Or the unusual bits like this one, the palm half plate. Some years ago, the half plate was very prevalent since most keyboards were top mounted. This was a perfect blend of like soft typing feel and top mount sound. Now, with all these gasket builds, you don't really see much of this right now. So, hey, it's a nice surprise, right? But the Brutal 1800 V2 has a lot more plate options, both full and half, for you to pick from. The standard one I think you get is actually the aluminum full plate. Moving on to the PCB, so it's a single piece extra large PCB. Some 1800s have two separate PCBs connected by like a ribbon cable, but Cannonkeys decided to just go with a single. It's simple, right? But it works. The version I have is actually solder PCB, so which I guess makes sense since I'm going to do a half plate build here. The overall surface is matte black and nothing really special to write home about. Flip it over and you get to see the PCB was designed by AIO3. Remember the VEGA and the Polaris? Yup, the same AIO3. What is also interesting is that this little chip right here, it has the Raspberry Pi logo on it, so I don't know, it's pretty interesting. The PCB also allows for various different layouts, but honestly it's restricted by the type of plate you use, so just keep that in mind as well. And this being 2023 now, yes, foam is normal. For the Brutal 1800 V2, it comes with three types of foam. Two layers of case foam, which is the same thickness, so you just get two of the same one, and one mid-plate foam. So you can choose to either decide to use all of it, or none of it, or a combination, right? And finally the case. Just looking at this case, the overall idea, in my opinion, is simplicity. It's a very clean and simple looking case, and the overall design convention is very AIO3. It's a classy look. This part right here is also very reminiscent of the old VEGA, so not a bad thing. One thing I did notice also is that the front case height is actually pretty low, probably because this thing doesn't use two layers of gaskets. The typing angle is 6.5 degrees, and as mentioned before, it's an 1800 format, which just means it's essentially a 96%. The closest thing to like a full-size 104 without being like desk-hoggingly big. Nice little detail here with the Brutal V2 and the AIO3 logo. From what I know, AIO3 is like the resident keep designer for Cannonkeys now, so you'll be seeing a lot of his designs in Cannonkeys boards going forward. When you look further into the board, you start seeing some of the interesting details. For example, the lower weight is unfinished zinc. The idea was like to kind of really align with that brutalist mindset by showing the unfinished rough side of the board or something like that. In addition, this board is actually designed to look screwless from the outside as well. So what that means is that the screw points are actually in the inner circumference of the board, and when it's completely assembled, it's not visible. So from like the bottom, there are no visible screw holes, which is always a nice, touch, right? Especially for a board that's like $400. Now, this is where things get a bit different. So remember what I said that this keyboard is gasket mounted, but it's like only half gasket mounted? Yep. If you look right here, the pour-on gaskets are applied to the bottom case. Like two different sizes, kind of like mixed all over the place around the edges. But when you look at the top, there is no gasket. It's designed to just fit right in and up against the upper case with no gasket. So how does this affect the feel and sound? Well, we'll find out soon enough. But before we go jump right into the build of the board, let's go to a quick message from our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is an online service that helps you print PCBs, do 3D printing, or even CNC machining. If you're an aspiring keyboard designer or whatever else designer, you can take your design and simply upload it to get something made quick. Or, if you have the source code for a PCB that you already have and you need a replacement, you can also get that done as well. They can handle all types of PCBs from your simple single layer designs to multi-layer stacks. Beyond PCBs, if you want to try making your own case, PCBWay can machine that as well. Now, a very exciting new service that PCBWay offers, OEM. Instead of just making a single component, you can actually task PCBWay to be an OEM manufacturer and make the whole thing. They can do anything from PCBs to CNC cases to even assembly. And using global manufacturing, they can offer very competitive prices. Is there a keyboard on the horizon? Well, check out OEM at PCBWay. Alright, so let's start this assembly process. Since this thing is like an actual solder PCB, I need to solder it. And since it's also a half plate, I decided to use the mid plate foam. I just felt like it'll help with the sound since everything is kind of like out there in the open, right? So for switches, I decided to go with a set of lubed Mizu inks. They're the same as inks, but they have the Mizu color profile. I was also curious to see how these would work in this nice half plate configuration as well, because inks are pretty deep. Plus they're lubed and they're ready to go, so it's perfect for me. For stabs, I decided to check out these old school set of cherry clip-ins. I hope these are still relevant, honestly. This is what it looks like when it's complete. I did notice a bit of warp in the lower PCB, but I figure it's cause the sheer size of the PCB. And honestly, at the end of the day, it didn't really affect the performance or the shape of the board, so whatever. Drop the daughter board in like this, and I decided to use just a single layer of the case foam below. So if indeed this is has a top mount-esque sound, I felt like it might benefit from the single layer of foam, but might not need it. Then I put the whole thing together like this, and overall, this was fairly straightforward to design and build. For keycaps, I'm using a set of PBTFans Resonance keycaps. They're cherry profile PBT, very nice quality at a very reasonable price, also represents science, so hey, you know what? It's even better. Alright, what do you think? Look-wise, it's pretty simple, honestly. For $400, you typically see more embellishments, but the Brutal 1800 V2 is pretty straightforward, so you may or may not like this depending on what kind of keyboards you prefer. For me, I wish it had a little bit more flair and detail for a $400 board, but if the board has amazing feel and sound, it might be worth it, right? Plus it has that classic VEGA look, so you know what, I can't complain. So for the flex, yes, it's gasket mounted, so there is flex. And the fact that it's half plate, it does feel pretty bouncy as well. So I'm glad I put a layer of the case foam below to control that bounce a little bit. It does feel very nice. What about the sound? Well, let's check it out. So, what do you think? So if you recall, this board is supposed to feel like a gasket mounted keyboard and sound like a top mounted keyboard. And surprisingly, it kinda does. Even without any PE foams or tape mounts or anything like that, the sound is surprisingly poppy and somewhat marbly and very prominent. In addition, the board doesn't sound muted at all and does have a very lively sound profile, which I really like. It doesn't also sound overly resonant or pingy or hollow at all. I honestly thought that this was going to just sound like any other gasket mounted keyboard anyways, but you know what? I was proven wrong, and you know what? I was pleasantly surprised as well. So based on this, I would say this. The keyboard does achieve what it was intending to do, provide a softer, comfortable, gasket mounted feel with a more prominent and clean top mount sound. So kudos to you AIO3, you did a great job again. My final thoughts. If you like a simple, easy to build keyboard from a well-respected designer that offers a thin, low-profile design to kind of type without using a wrist rest, then the Brutal 1800 V2 is for you. Plus, it's an 1800 format, so it's actually pretty nice for the office environment if you want to use it there. Plus, the keyboard does seem to offer best of both worlds in terms of like delivering a good sound and good feel. However, just keep in mind that you're paying $400 for this. So at the end of the day, it's your choice. But also keep in mind that there are also many other options at $400. But once again, a lot of them probably are going to be through group buy. So while this one is in stock and it is also ready to ship immediately, so you know what? Think about that. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll have more content for you in the future. Thanks.